transvaginal ultrasound and estradiol level monitoring. And what do we see in this follicle monitoring? Whenever we stimulate the patient for ovulation induction, whether the response is adequate enough or not, and we come to know that by having a look at the cervical mucus. If there is good estrogenized cervical mucus, means probably our follicle is growing well. We have good endometrium, means probably the estrogen levels are adequate enough. And we have now a mature follicle ready for trigger, so that we can give the HCG whatever the dose we decide. It is not mandatory to look at the per speculum extension and know about what is happening to the cervical mucus. Even on transvaginal scan, we can see the good amount of cervical mucus, as you can see in this picture. And then I want to insist here that as far as measuring the endometrium is concerned, we should be having look at the entire uterocervical length. That's the plane we should be measuring the endometrium. And once we look at the endometrium, we zoom the image so that the most appropriate thickness can be measured. Coming to follicle. As far as mature follicle is concerned, any follicle between 14.14 millimeter to 24.24 millimeter is a mature follicle for us. Now we have to decide which one is really mature enough to be ready to give trigger, because both sizes are mature enough. When we are measuring the follicle, we measure the inner to inner diameter, and if it is a perfectly round follicle, one single diameter is sufficient. If it is little oblong, we can take the two diameters and average them. When the follicle reaches real maturity, I once again insist that whenever we are looking at the follicle, we see the follicle and we zoom the image. And once we zoom the image, as the follicle reaches the maturity, there is edema between the granules and the theca layer, and you can see this, the arrow mass there, that's a perifollicular halo. So perifollicular halo, if it is seen, the follicle is close to maturity, and it will definitely rupture when you give HCG. Before that, whenever these follicles are there, we say that 18 millimeter or 20 millimeter is a good follicle size, just looking at the size to trigger. But there is a difference between clomiphene-induced cycles and gonadotropin-induced cycles. Because clomiphene-induced cycles, the follicles have a hygroscopic property. So clomiphene-induced cycle, the follicle is not mature before it reaches 20 millimeter. That's the point to be remembered. Apart from the size, we now start adding few additional parameters like use of color Doppler. When we use color Doppler, apart from the size, we look at the vascularity around the follicle, and at least 3/4 of the follicular wall should show us a vascularity to say that it is a mature follicle. And when it is close to the rupture, the peak systolic velocity also increases. So follicle wall, if it shows peak systolic velocity of more than 10 centimeter per second, that's again a good favorable point. That's the appropriate time for us to give the trigger. We should not forget the endometrium, because both should go hand in hand, the follicle size as well as the endometrial growth. And apart from the thickness more than 7.5 millimeter, we should also put a color Doppler on the endometrium, and we must see that the color is crossing the zone 2 to know that it's adequately mature endometrium. If we look at the endometrium and if we look at the follicle size and everything was very good, we gave the trigger, the follicle ruptured, but there is no pregnancy. That is what the common picture is. If we would have done the uterine artery Doppler on the side where the dominant follicle was there, and the pulsatility index on the side of the dominant follicle of uterine artery, if it is less than 3, pregnancies have not yet been reported in that particular cycle. So we should delay giving this HCG till the uterine artery PI on the side of the dominant follicle goes below 3. Whenever there is a thin endometrium, we should have enough patience to wait for the follicle to grow still further, and whenever the endometrium grows beyond 7.5 millimeter, then only you think of giving a trigger. Why do I say that? Because if you see in this graph, there is a sudden rise in the endometrial thickness. So to say that in the late follicular phase, the endometrium grows very rapidly. If you have seen the endometrium to be 5.5 millimeter today and the follicle is 20 millimeter, you will be surprised to see tomorrow that the follicle has grown to 21.5 millimeter and the endometrium has crossed 7 millimeter. So waiting even for 24 hours is good enough, because probably that was the rising slope when we caught this endometrium. And you all know that at the appropriate endometrial thickness, the pregnancy rate rises, of course. But that's not enough. When we start using gonadotropin, say in an IVF cycle, it's not only the follicle size, because there is multifollicular development, and we are always scared that our patient should not land into ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Okay. As far as estradiol level is concerned, it is these estradiol levels which start rising first, and then comes the size in the increase in the size of the follicle. So E2 rises first. So if you are seeing a patient who is on gonadotropins, and if you start monitoring on ultrasound as well as E2 levels, as soon as the E2 levels have started rising, that is the time when the active phase of follicular growth has started. It may take, the period may vary depending upon the patient's ovarian reserve and what stimulus you are using for ovarian stimulation. But E2 levels can be augmented to comparable levels by increasing the dose of gonadotropins, and dose of gonadotropin should not be changed once E2 rise is 50 to 100% every alternate day. Very slow or very rapid rise of E2 always leads to poor outcome. Those who are interested in academics, this is the formula that I could get for how much should be the E2 levels, because every small follicle to the largest follicle will be secreting E2, and we know that in an IVF cycle we limit this E2 to 2500. We don't allow the patient to cross 2500 picograms of E2 levels, lest the patient lands into ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. But this 2500 is not applicable for the patients who are not downregulated. For the patients whom we are considering for IUI cycles, we don't downregulate them, and in downregulated patients, the upper limit should not cross 1650. If 1650 of E2 levels is crossed in non-downregulated patient, this patient is bound to land into hyperstimulation syndrome. How long should it take to achieve desired E2 levels? Once the estradiol levels start rising, this is an active phase, as I said, and for good response, 6 plus minus 1 day is sufficient. The number of days of stimulation is not at all important. You go on stimulating the patient, and you go on monitoring the patient on ultrasound. If on ultrasound you are not getting an adequate response, get correlated with estradiol levels, and once you start the estradiol, find that estradiol levels are rising, then it will take only 6 days for your follicle to reach maturity level. If monitoring daily, E2 should continue to rise till the day of SCG, because plateauing 1 day before SCG means premature luteation or arrest of the advanced follicles. Next comes the SCG dose. 2000 to 10,000 can be any time, any dose that can be given. Normally we give 5,000. But the best answer that I got is the SCG dose should be determined upon how much pain you had to take to stimulate this patient to reach a dominant follicle size. By that I mean, if your requirement for gonadotropins was high, the dose for SCG also should be high, and that highest limit of SCG is 10,000 international units. So coming back to the pre-ovulatory scan follicle, the size should be appropriate between 18 to 24 millimeter. There should be 2 to 3 follicles. The sonolucent halo occurs 24 hours prior to ovulation. Some people, experts, can also on ultrasound make out the cumulus O for us. Put the color Doppler, and 3/4 of the follicle wall should show vascularity, and the peak systolic velocity, if it is more than 10 centimeter per second, that's good, and the volume should be between 3 to 7 ml. But there are surprises that which we always come across. We have given clomiphene cited, patient is called on day 11 for follicle study, and we don't see any follicle. It clearly means that this patient's FSH level did not cross the threshold for folliculogenesis. So what do? This is strongly recommended in the 9th edition of SPIROV, that if we are now using clomiphene cited for stimulation, whether it's a PCO patient or a normal ovarian reserve patient, we usually start with 50 milligram a day for 5 days, starting from day 2 to 5 of a cycle. And on day 11, there is no dominant follicle. If you are seeing no dominant follicle, treat that day 11 as endocrinological day 2 of that patient, and increase the dose by 50 milligrams. So from 50, we make it 100 milligrams for another 5 days, and again after 10 days you see the follicle. If you can't see a dominant follicle, treat that as a day 2, increase the dose to 150. 150 is the maximum dose that is recommended But for that, the patient and the gynecologist patience is very important. But this is called as a step-rise pattern of increasing the dose of clomiphene citrate. Or if you are not patient, and the patient is not patient, you can straightway start adding gonadotropins. But if you are doing using gonadotropins, transvaginal sonography, and if required, estradiol assessment is mandatory. Patient cannot be left alone. We get frustrated because of the inadequate response, which is a common situation if the patient is a case of polycystic ovarian syndrome. You see the follicle growing, you continue the gonadotropin dose, the E2 levels fall, the follicle doesn't grow. This is because of the inherent hyperandrogenicity in these patients, and along with that there are other factors which are locally acting which do not allow our gonadotropins or the clomiphene citrate to act. In that case, proper optimization is necessary. You must beautify the ovary, optimize it, and then you get the beautiful results. How do we optimize that? We all know about lifestyle modification, exercise, adding important to this, but earlier we used to give only COCs for 3 to 6 cycles. 9th edition of CIROP mentions that this COC, if combined with GnRH analog, depot preparation works better, and at the end of 4 to 6 months, even spontaneous ovulation in these patients can occur, or they can respond well to whatever the stimulus protocol you have thought of. To conclude, I would say proper assessment should start on the day 2. Transvaginal sonography is mandatory. Ultrasound and estradiol are complementary, especially in gonadotropin-induced regimes. Kerr Doppler adds to the accuracy. Wait till the endometrium improves. Optimize PCOS before stimulation. And if proper parameters are not met, we should have courage to cancel the cycles. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.